The full episode is now available on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Please see the link in the description for more details.
But okay, so back to Benjen. Earlier I said this is one of the big mysteries in the series, not only because it moves things forward, but because it's featured in the show, whereas other mysteries aren't really a major focus, and they're just book only. I think that George probably highlighted for Dave and Dan which mysteries were important for the endgame, despite setting up quite a few of them in the books, and I'll admit, I do think he probably forgot that he put some of those in there, or he knows that he did, but he never planned to answer them. And I refer to these as little mysteries that don't really matter that much. Like, who's the hooded man? Or what's up with the oily black stones? What happened to Tysha, which I hope never gets answered? Why did the Mad King spare Ethan Glover? Stuff like that. But these are little mysteries, and I'm not knocking on them because they do keep the fandom alive and are a bit more interesting.
Yes.
The big ones that'll get answered will probably have underwhelming conclusions, but they also seem to be the least interesting ones when compared to the other many little ones that's kind of keeping the franchise and the fandom afloat.
It does. I mean, it's like all of these crazy theories definitely are good for the fandom because there's lots of little things that we sit and argue about forever. I mean, you know, how many discussions have been about the items in Walgrave's lockbox, you know, just like any small thing. There's just so many of just rich mysteries. The problem is that, like, when it actually comes to closing a story and finishing a story, it's very difficult because now you've introduced all of these mysteries that you're kind of promising that you're going to answer a lot of them, and there's just not enough time or space or whatever, especially if you don't have an idea of what it is and you've just created the mystery and you're like, I'll figure it out later. Oof. That's the problem.
But a lot of these mysteries really do add to the flavor of the world and should never be resolved, like the oily black stone stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. I mean, there are. That's a very good point. There's mystery. There's mysterious things about a world's past. That's fine, but that's setting. That's not narrative. That's not
Good point.
the world. That's not like events that are going on in the story that you're never going to find out the answer to.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. If it's part of the narrative, then the mystery, of course, should be answered. But when it comes like to these minor ones, I do think that there's a charm in them not being answered. It adds to the flavor of the world, and those are my favorites. This is something that Tolkien understood that George Lucas did not, you know, before everybody started deifying Lucas. I hated in The Phantom Menace when Lucas explains that the Force is actually just these microscopic No, dude, don't do that. Tolkien understood that when you solve one mystery, you gotta open up another one. You gotta keep the world mysterious. And even now, like 50, 70 years later, there's a mystery in The Lord of the Rings that takes up one paragraph that people still talk about and make videos on. It's the moment, I should have Yoisten for this. It's the moment where Gandalf falls through Helm's Deep and he's chasing the Balrog, and there's like a page where he reaches the very bottom of the mountain, and he briefly mentions how there are things there so ancient the world has forgotten about.
And you're like, what are these things?
Right, and most of fantasy and even sci-fi has these like mysterious elements to it that really prop up the world. Like 40K, because we talk about Warhammer 40K sometimes. Warhammer 40K has the Ghoul Stars. You know, we're like, we are being invaded by this extragalactic force, the Tyranids. But for whatever reason, the Tyranids avoid that section of space. Why? That's so weird and mysterious, and I hope it never gets resolved. So there are some mysteries that shouldn't be resolved. But this, with Benjen, I think you're right. I think no matter what the answer is, it's going to be underwhelming. And it's not like your favorite show, The Leftovers, where the mystery doesn't matter.
Right, or the fact that The Leftovers, it's like the plot of it is specifically, we're never going to know, and the whole point is how human beings deal with the fact that we're never going to know the answer. So that's a little different because that's the point of the story, is to never answer it. That's very different.
Exactly. It's not like that because as you said, not only has it gone too long, but even if it didn't go on that long and got resolved quickly, like the Cat's Paw one, a good chunk of the story hinges on that mystery, and it feels like no answer could ever truly be satisfying, whereas all these other smaller, minor ones don't need to be answered because the mystery is part of the fun and it adds flavor, it adds color to the world. By the way, let me apologize to the audience because I swear we're gonna talk about Benjen. It's just, I really wanted to, we branch off too much. Okay, so, about Benjen. For the longest time, I thought he was cold hands. But then that thing with the editor came out where the editor asks George in that little note, is this cold hands? I think it's cold hands. I did a whole video on it back in the day, and George says no. Yeah. So there goes that theory. Right. I remember one of the first times I've ever heard it was 10 plus years ago. My friend from Yorkshire, shout out to her, she hits me up and she goes, Did you hear about this theory that Benjen might be Dario? And I'm like, at that point, I thought Euron was Dario. What's going on?
The small hints were given about Benjen's whereabouts. The geography has been retconned, and so you can't pick it out on the map on where he would be and stuff like that. So, yeah. But Benjen. I mean, I just think about the most common Ice and Fire videos we see on YouTube do tend to be "Where is Benjen?" is probably one of the top ones.
Oh, I don't know if you know this, but the first video I ever made that reached 1 million is a Benjen Stark video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I bring up a lot of these points. Is he cold hands? Is he Dario? I don't know.
Yeah.
What would be the closest to the most satisfying answer you could possibly get?
For Benjen, so I mean, I've come up with the idea that that time-traveling Bran is trying to, tip little things in history in order to try to produce a good outcome. And he's gotten to the point where he's tried so many different things that he realizes that the only thing he can do to try to get a different outcome is horrible things to his family. And so he's like, crap, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Well, what if I kill my dad? What if I kill my mom? What if I kill Jon Snow? What if I have Benjen go missing? He starts realizing, and you start realizing okay, I'm stuck in this pit that I need to get out of. How am I going to get out of it? Well, I need to screw up Hodor's brain in order to get Hodor to be there with me to try to help me out of this pit. I got to get Mira, an incredible climber, to help me get out of this pit. I need, maybe I need Ghost as a direwolf to help me at some point. How do I get Ghost there? Well, I've got to somehow kill Jon Snow to have his second life go into Ghost. But then I got to get Jon Snow to be Lord Commander to get executed. So I've got to have the Great Ranging in order to, I've got to do all of these things to make Jon Lord Commander in order to get him to this point, in order so they can all get me out of this pit. It's a dark answer, that it's a really dark answer that Bran has to do things that he so desperately wants to get out of this pit that he's willing to and save the timeline, save Westeros, that he's willing to sacrifice his family.
So what you're telling me here is that the entire Ice and Fire series is basically the best outcome for Bran Stark.
Yes. I mean, Bran Stark is trying to save the world, but he feels like he needs to save the world. So if you think Benjen Stark disappearing directly leads to Jaffer Flowers and Othor's bodies to suddenly appear in front of the wall, right? Jaffer Flowers and Othor were in his party, right? Mm-hmm. So event 1 directly leads to event 2. Well, Othor and Jaffer Flowers, that leads to the attack on Jeor Mormont. Well, the attack on Jeor Mormont leads to Ghost and Jon saving Jeor, and Jeor thinking that Jon is a golden boy and giving him the sword. So now Jon is on the path to becoming Lord Commander. And so then Jeor decides to do the Great Ranging to find Benjen. Again, so we go out. The whole watch goes out and Jeor dies, and half the watch gets slaughtered. And then they come back, and Jon ends up getting elected Lord Commander. And so now so you can kind of see that like Benjen disappearing leads to Jon being Lord Commander. Well, what's the result of Jon being Lord Commander? Well, chaos at the Wall and him getting stabbed, him saying ghost. So perhaps he's like having a second life. So you kind of go like, okay, if you were replaying all of the events Groundhog's Day, like what little tweaks, are happening like in order to push everything? Because it does seem that a lot of supernatural elements are trying to make Jon Lord Commander, right? Oh, Jaffa Flowers and Orthor waking up, Ghost returning at the exact time in order to convince Jon to not leave the watch. The Mormont's raven being in the kettle. Like there's all sorts of little supernatural things pushing Jon to becoming Lord Commander the whole time. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying, is that the answer is Benjen is sacrificed to, and it's revealed that Benjen is sacrificed to serve time-traveling Bran's agenda. That's the best one I have.
No, that's why I'm saying, like, time-traveling Bran is behind a lot of this stuff. Who sent the cat's paw? Probably time-traveling Bran.
Yeah, it gets ridiculous at some point. Like I say, Ford planned it all. Like time-traveling Bran. Like it does get to the point where you're just like, well, every event is fucking time-traveling Bran, right? Like nothing is random. It's just time-traveling Bran doing everything.